Hey friends, don't look at my hair. This is the Miss Wolfie from our half-acre homestead, and today we're going to make a leftover makeover meal. Last night we had a big beautiful pork roast, and although there's some bones, there's still a lot of meat left over. We also have some leftover roast potatoes and carrots and leftover gravy. Okay, so what we're going to want to have along with our leftovers is some broth. I actually have gravy, so I'm just using this broth to thin it out a bit. Can of mushrooms, totally optional. One nice size onion and some dehydrated or fresh vegetables of your choice. Okay, first things first, and you don't need to do this if you're using fresh vegetables, is I'm going to bring to boil about 2 cups to 3 cups of my organic beef broth. I'm also going to throw in about 1/4 cup of green beans, dehydrated. If you're using regular vegetables, like fresh vegetables, or even canned, you don't have to do this. You're just going to need a little bit of broth to make your gravy a little more liquid. So let's get the rest of this done while this rehydrates with the yumminess of beef broth. Now I'm going to grease my casserole dish, but instead of using butter, I'm going to use this nice fatty piece left over from last night's roast pork. The fat is soft enough. It's not as pretty as butter, but the fat is soft enough that it will grease our casserole dish just lovely. Our beans are boiling, so I'm just going to turn this right off now that the broth is boiling, and we're just going to let those beans hydrate. I'm going to start removing. Now remember, Papa and I butcher our own, so especially with the new bandsaw, we're not really good with the bones. Mind you, there's enough meat here that I gave Papa, and I both had pork sandwiches for lunch. Now, I'm going to take the rest of this bone and put it in a crock pot for tomorrow night's soup supper. That's that. So now, I'm just going to, yes, I should be using a bigger knife, but I have better control with my hands with a smaller knife. Now, I'm just going to cut up the meat. And this was a beautiful roast. It was huge. We had Briar's friend Alex over for dinner. He's one of my kids. I call him one of my kids. And still, we had tons left over. So, here goes the chopped up. That's our leftover pork roast. After lunches. And now, I'm just going to slice up an onion. You want the slices fairly thin because everything else in here is cooked. So, you want your slices of onion fairly thin so that they go well and cook evenly just in the heating process of your casserole, because we're basically just reheating everything. Open our can of Product of Canada mushrooms, and I'm just going to toss those right over top of the onions and the meat. Now the reason I'm putting the fresher stuff over top of the meat is because it will help keep the meat from drying out, because it's going to give off some moisture. Now I'm just going to take these leftover roast carrots, drop them in. You can throw just about any old leftover vegetable in here. And that's it so far. Now we're going to take our leftover gravy and we're just going to plop it right in there with the hot beef broth and our dehydrated green and yellow beans. So you just want to have enough liquid to pour your gravy, but also enough for your dehydrated beans. Okay, now because of my dehydrated vegetables, I'm pouring the gravy and the beans over top. If I didn't have dehydrated vegetables that I wanted to cover to keep moist, I probably would have put the potatoes on next. But now we're just going to slice our 3 leftover roast potatoes. You may want to take the skin off your potatoes. It makes it easier to slice. And we just cover the top. We're just going to dust this with a little bit of home dehydrated granulated garlic, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt, and my personal favorite, a little dusting of parsley, kale. Now, we're just going to pop the lid on this to keep it hydrated and into the oven. This goes at 350 degrees for about 35-40 minutes. Okay, Papa's home and supper's ready. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I'm just going to let this rest for a minute, and then I'm going to dish Papa up some. But you're not going to see him at the table tonight. Why? Because I'm still tying his quilt. Okay, let's dish up Papa's. These beans look more like leather breeches, don't they? Look at that.
What is this?
Now this is leftovers, but I made it kind of in. I thought it was going to be a casserole, but it turned out to be an oven stew. Watch it, it's hot, baby.
Very nice.
Thank you. And here is the beautiful soup we made with the last of that roast bone. This is the Miss Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying just because you have a full freezer, it doesn't mean you can't make a roast stretch for 4 meals. Take care, God bless.